Hey guys, it's Shawn. I want to take a minute today and go beyond the Corporate Transparency Act. You might be hearing about the Corporate Transparency Act a lot and the potential enforcement and need to disclose information about your business and its owners to the U.S. federal government, specifically FinCEN. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Corporate Transparency Act today, but we're going to jump into things beyond it that many businesses might want to think about for the future. So I'm Shawn McBride. I'm a business lawyer. I do this channel about business law. It's really helping business owners and business leaders get an education in business law and understanding what's going on behind the scenes. Obviously, we can't do legal advice over YouTube, but we can educate, inform, and give you the tips and tricks you need when you talk to your legal counsel. So let's jump into it today and talk about what goes beyond that Corporate Transparency Act. And if you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Let me know in the comments. I'm really curious what percentage of people are coming back versus people who've been that are new here. So if you let me in the comments know which way you are, I really appreciate it. Okay, so the Corporate Transparency Act, and we did a longer video here on the channel. You can go find that on YouTube. We talked about the fact that it exists. There's been a lot of back and forth in litigation. As of the time of recording, January 14, 2025, the Corporate Transparency Act is not permitted to be enforced due to a federal court order, and FinCEN, a part of the Department of Treasury, has recognized that. And there was a lot of crazy back and forth and a lot of confusion about it. That's why I did the prior video here on the channel about the Corporate Transparency Act. So go feel free to check that out. What's great about the Corporate Transparency Act, what I like seeing is a lot of business owners want to comply. They want to avoid problems proactively, and that's a great thing. And I'll tell you, for most business owners, my sense is a lot of these business law things are just a hassle, particularly something like the Corporate Transparency Act, right? It comes out of nowhere, gets enacted, delayed enforcement, and then suddenly you're threatened with fines if you don't do it. Many owners didn't know whether it was a scam or it was real because there are so many scams going on today trying to collect your information or to collect fees. There were a lot of companies charging you to file these reports when most companies can download a simple PDF form from the government, fill it in, and upload it and be on with their life, right? These things do not take a super long period of time to process if you have a simple ownership structure, which many of you do, right? If you have one or just a handful of people that you know, and you fill out the form, you don't have voting trusts or other crazy arrangements, boom, you're filed, right? For some companies, it's a little more complicated, particularly if you have estranged owners or veto rights or other things in there. For those people, they have not been served well because they didn't get really great guidance on what to do and what not to do, right? A lot of people fell through the cracks of the Corporate Transparency Act. And of course, bigger companies got exempted from it. So, all of that aside, I recommend to you the other video that I did on Corporate Transparency Act if you want to understand where we are and how we got here. Today, I want to go beyond. I want to talk about things that, business owners, business leaders might want to be thinking about beyond the Corporate Transparency Act, right? The Corporate Transparency Act really opened up the door of thinking about compliance. Many people have LLCs, and so I recommend for LLC owners go back and look at your LLC agreement. I will tell you from experience from companies that come to me when they're ready to sell or when they're having a problem, a lot of companies don't bother writing an LLC agreement. So if you don't have a written LLC agreement, that might be something to look at sooner than later. It's great to get the terms, the ownership percentages, the buyout procedures, all down in writing, signed by the owners of the LLC. This puts a lot of certainty in place. Everybody knows where they're sitting, and that's there when future developments happen, right? When the future starts evolving and people are changing ownership, people maybe die, death, disability, divorce, disagreement. These are big things we talk about. When one of these events start happening, then you can have that to go back to, right? These 4 or 5 Ds, depending on who you talk to, disagreements. When these D things happen, you go back to your agreement and you understand where you stand vis-a-vis the other owners, right? So that's a great thing. to have in writing. A lot of LLCs don't do it. It is a good liability protection tool in general. A lot of times having an LLC agreement will protect you. For those of you that are corporations, I want you to go back and make sure that you were properly formed. Many people file a certificate of incorporation with the state, but then they have issues with their bylaws, their stock issuance, other things. I mean, I've encountered many companies over the course of my career that didn't finish the formation process to make sure that they had that strong foundation, right? So that's something, if you're a corporation, step one is to go back and look at those corporate documents and make sure everything's in order. Do you have bylaws? You're generally going to need bylaws. Did you have an incorporator consent? Generally, the person that files your certificate of incorporation, called your incorporator, or a similar term in different states, they have the power to initially form the company, set up the board of directors, adopt bylaws, things like that. Do you have that documentation in place? Was it done? If it wasn't, now rather than when you have a problem in the future is the time to revisit that. Do you have a good stock ledger showing all the stock issuances of your company? For many companies, there's not a lot of issuances, but you should have them recorded, and you should, of course, have copies of the stock certificates which were issued to the owners or stockholders, right? So all of these types of things, basic blocking and tackling. So if you're thinking about compliance and you got woke up by the Corporate Transparency Act and the potential fines, you're not necessarily going to get fined for not having an LLC agreement or not having your corporate documents in order, but you could have financial penalties, particularly in the case of unfavorable outcomes in future lawsuits. So just as financially rewarding potentially to go back and fix those things. So really go take a look at that. From there, do you have an updated registered agent address with the state? The state keeps a database of where mailings go if you get sued, right? So now the next step is, do you have that updated? And I've seen many companies move, and they're thinking about payroll, and they're thinking about their customers, and they're obviously moving inventory and people and everything else. But did you go back and update the filing you had with the state where you formed your corporation, LLC, or other entity? And did you tell them about your new address? That's very important, because if you get sued, obviously you want the lawsuit to come to you, right? You don't want what they call a default judgment where you don't show up. So again, more basic blocking and tackling to go through, right? And so from there, now that you have your corporation fully formed, you potentially have your LLC agreement, you have your address updated. Now you want to start thinking about liability protection, right? Do you have appropriate agreements with your customers and vendors? Are you, talking to everybody who needs to have updates when you change addresses? Are you updating your agreements regularly? Right, these are the types of things that you as a corporation or an LLC want to be doing, right? Thinking about liability, thinking about protecting, updating your agreements as owners come and go, and preparing yourself for the future, right? So there's a lot of things you can now do that were beyond the Corporate Transparency Act. We don't know whether that Corporate Transparency Act is going to come back or not, but now's a great time to rebuild that foundation. And then I just recently did a video about business owners leaving the U.S., but whether you're going to stay in the U.S. or not, regardless of where you're located, at some point you want to start thinking about the potential sale or exit of your business, right? At some point you may want to hand the keys over to somebody else, whether it's for retirement, so you can move on to the next business, so you can cash out your gains and enjoy them. You can start thinking about the sale process sooner than later. Generally speaking, you can't think about selling your business too early. The sooner you start processing and getting ready for a sale, the better off you're going to be. So start thinking about, what does that look like? Do we have the paperwork in order? Have we started cleaning up our records? Have we got the owners less involved in the day-to-day operation? These are all types of things you can do to prepare to sell your business. If that's something you want me to go deeper on, comment below, and I'll potentially do a video for that in the future, right? I'd like to get feedback from you about what you want to hear about, right? Don't put anything confidential in the comments. Obviously, everybody can read YouTube comments. If you have general questions, ideas, or whatever, let me know. And if you have ideas you want to see in a future video, just reach out to me either by comment or some people write me privately, whichever case. Let me know, and I'll try to do videos that are, to your liking and need of the audience, right? I'm trying to tailor this to help people along. That is my goal with this channel. All right, consider subscribing if you got value from this, and I'll see you guys for another video soon. Thanks for tuning in.